renowned Longwood Gardens of Kennett Square, Pennsylvania, gift of Mr. and Mrs. Peirre S. Pont to the flower lovers of the world, are visited each year by many thousands from far and near. Everywhere in these acres of magnificent gardens, visitors are impressed by the almost unbelievable variety proud nature displays. Endless surprises are on every hand, and variety of blooms and range of hues, in both familiar and exotic blossoms. Within the great conservatory, with acres of gardens under glass featuring plants from around the world, climates and seasons are created to display astonishing parades of floral delights. A breathtaking assortment and constant rotation through passing seasons with new blooms, new displays, new surprises every visit is nowhere better exemplified than in a rather small room reached by passing through the lacy acacia passage, where set off by a wall of graceful blossoms are enchantingly displayed in bays like floral jewel cases. The ever-popular and amazing orchids of Longwood Gardens. Longwood's outstanding orchid display cases, occupying but a few yards in the miles of passageways open to the public, offer week after week throughout the year such variety in orchids as to rival the diversity of all the rest of the gardens. And this is as it should be, for the orchid is a flower well deserving special attention. Not so much because the familiar orchid has long excited admiration and become a symbol of elegance, but because the orchid family, Orchidaceae, is perhaps nature's most diversified. Orchids clearly rate among the loveliest, the most elegant of flowers, magnificent, glamorous, spectacular, and exotic. But they are also among the most surprising, the most intriguing, and the most whimsical. Orchids, too, can be strange, fantastic, even grotesque. In almost unending variety, orchids bloom not like other flowers in brief appointed seasons, but year-round. And Longwood visitors can return again and again to wonder at the never-ending orchid parade. The ever-changing orchid displays present harmonious yet contrasting types, such as this lovely cascade of Silogene Diana. The peak perfection specimens so artfully exhibited here reflect extraordinary skill in the painstaking behind-the-scenes cultivation that Longwood visitors seldom see. A never-ending program of patient coaxing, careful handling, and scientific research is devoted to the development of perfect display specimens to delight the casual visitor and astound the expert, for all agree an orchid is something special. Not merely an exotic jungle plant, foreign to greenhouse, window box, or garden, the orchid is nature's most diversified family. What then is an orchid? The Orchidaceae, a family of epiphytic and terrestrial herbs, is distinguished by flowers with three sepals, commonly petal-like, and three petals, of which one is modified into a specialized labellum. Unique to orchids is the column in which stamens and style are fused. In the familiar types, a wide variety of orchids may be recognized by the three-petal, three-sepal arrangement with conspicuous labellum. But this basic pattern is found in astonishing variations. The lower petal forming the labellum or lip of the orchid may be tube-like, trumpet-like, cup-like in great variety. The labellum, often in contrasting colors, may be deeply lobed, elaborately fringed, surprisingly textured, or grotesquely shaped. At other times, it may be delicate, tiny, or inconspicuous. Petals may be full and rounded, short, or elongated. Although actually 6 in number, petals and sepals may appear to be only 3 and difficult to distinguish, or may look like 4 elements, or quite often 5. The orchid in many types seems to masquerade as one of its distant floral cousins, a lily, crocus, lily of the valley, pansy, lilac, or other familiar favorite. Color range is far from limited to the familiar idea of a purple called orchid, and varies even with a small genus such as the Miltonia through a wide spectrum from whites and subtle tones to brassy, brazen flamboyance. While others show somber tones suggesting the mythical black orchid. Patterns, markings, and designs are so varied and whimsical as to provide unending amazement. Orchid blossoms may be larger than a man's hand, or the astonishing Phragmopedilum caudatum, whose sepals grow to a length spanning more than 2 feet. But more often, orchid flowers are smaller, or at times so tiny as to pass notice. But though orchids may bloom singly, it is far more characteristic of the species to exhibit lavish profusion. A stem may produce blooms in clusters, from a few exquisite blossoms to color abundance. Often blooms develop in artful arches and graceful sprays. Others offer exquisite arrangements of tiny blooms in cascades, festoons, and the delicate chains of Dendrochilon filiforme. Far from being confined, as so often supposed, to humid jungles of South and Central America, orchids grow on every continent and in varied climates, such as this Collagenea cristata from the Himalayas. Central and South American jungles are the source of spectacular types. India and the Far East boast many varieties. Africa produces orchids in its forests and mountains. While some orchids found in nature may be extremely rare and seldom seen, others flourish in favorable settings. Among the wildflowers of the countryside around Longwood, there are as many as 31 native orchids, including Cypripedium, the familiar lady slipper, and others which grow in Longwood's wildflower garden. Among the most popular and familiar orchids are the Cymbidium, many types contributing to the magnificent seasonal displays in the Longwood Main Conservatory each spring. Even this one genus presents delightful variety in coloring, shades, and growing patterns. Cymbidiums originated in tropical Asia, but have grown popular with gardeners around the world. Other popular orchids that thrive in Longwood and appear among the general displays in the conservatory are Paphiopedilums, handsome lady slipper type of orchid often improperly considered a Cypripedium. These sturdy blooms in greens, yellows, bronze, and metallic reds are long-lasting favorites of florists and flower arrangers. The only orchid among Longwood's collection classified as an economic plant is the vanilla orchid, a vine from Mexico now widely cultivated in tropical climates with a valuable flavoring obtained from the seed pod or vanilla bean. Other orchids are displayed on Longwood's epiphyte tree. A high percentage of orchids are epiphytic, their roots drawing nourishment from water and air, But they are not, as mistakenly charged, parasites feeding on the host plant. In their natural setting, the tropical rains are absorbed by the roots to support a symbiotic fungus growth in the tissues which produces nourishment for the plant. Epiphytic orchids are grown and often exhibited in various hanging arrangements, and often have characteristically pulpy roots with a sponge-like ability to hold moisture. Orchids are far from exclusively epiphytes, and many species are classified as terrestrials. Plant structure shows a great variety from species that are virtually leafless to types with spectacular leaf arrangements, both evergreen and deciduous, and striking patterns of plant development. Some are collected because the leaf is more decorative than the blossom, such as Makotes petola from Java and Himaria discolor from Malaya. The tremendous variety presented by the orchid family in blossom, color, size, and growing patterns is most striking, however, in the highly developed and specialized features involved in plant pollination and reproduction. It is nearly always true that the labellum displays color, patterns, and configurations associated with the attraction of pollinating insects, moths, or even birds, providing an ingenious entranceway to achieve fertilization by, in many cases, but a single type of insect. In a typical orchid, the pollinating insect is attracted to probe the center of the blossom. In doing so, it contacts the sticky disc to which the pollinia are attached, which then adhere. This is transferred to another blossom to accomplish pollination. Quite a few orchids mimic the insect's mate so that it may lure a pollinating bee or wasp. This bulbophyllum features tiny lures so delicately balanced that they vibrate in even the slightest breeze to give the appearance of buzzing insects, attracting real insects to achieve pollination. Another type of bulbophyllum displays a lure that moves to attract a pollinating insect. Angreacum sesquipedale from Madagascar caught the attention of the famed Charles Darwin, who studied the greatly elongated spurs or nectar tubes, more than a foot long. He deduced that it must attract a pollinator with a proboscis to match. 40 years later in the area, his prediction was borne out with the discovery of the moth, Xanthopan morganae predicta, with an 18-inch tongue. In several orchids, such as the Catasetum group, the male and female flowers are on separate plants. An insect which is attracted by the aroma to scratch at the source of the odor contacts an appendage which serves as a trigger, hurling the pollinia which adhere to the insect for transfer. The sticky package may be hurled as much as several feet with astonishing accuracy. A striking orchid from South Africa, Dysa uniflora, has been the subject of an extensive program at Longwood in which this unusual and attractive species has been pollinated. The pollinia of the Dysa blossom are artificially transferred. The resulting seed pod contains literally thousands of microscopic seeds which, with care and patience, produce new plants. In nature, though orchids produce literally millions of seeds in a single pod, a very small percentage ever develop. Few reach maturity and require several years. Orchid growing involves pampering and continuous care in raising plants from seed. The tiny seedlings, carefully coaxed, must be repotted as they develop. And characteristically of orchids, it may take years before the first blooms appear. Longwood's Dysa are striking examples of research involved in developing new types. And these handsome and unusual blooms are frequently featured in Longwood's displays. The growing of orchids from seed necessary for the development of new hybrids has produced many striking new combinations with features of parent plants, variations on color, shape, markings, and other characteristics. Such propagation usually involves a technique known as flasking, in which millions of microscopic seeds are bottled in a sterile fungus-free agar mixture until they can develop enough to be potted. In recent years, a revolutionary new technique, meristemming, uses microscopic bits of tissue from the growing tip to develop new plants identical to the original. Fortunately for the hobbyist, commercial grower, and Longwood, orchids are relatively easy to propagate by vegetative subdivision. As plants grow, new shoots appear, and as these leads develop, it is possible to subdivide the rhizome system to produce a new independent plant. Desirable orchids can be divided again and again to expand the collection. The new plants are then potted and will produce blooms identical to the original plant from each new pseudobulb. In the dendrobium orchids, the upper part of the plant develops new shoots and roots, which can then be cut off and potted as a new plant. The new plant with identical characteristics and the original plant will both continue to grow and add to the collection. From many sources, new types are acquired to add to the Longwood collection. Many come through the Longwood Gardens Plant Introduction Program, which, in conjunction with the U.S. Department of Agriculture and other agencies, has made significant contributions to the field of horticulture. In the years since the first orchids were given to Longwood by Mrs. W.K. DuPont, the collection has grown to more than 7,500 plants of more than 1,000 species. This collection, continually expanding, features both familiar and rare species of tremendous variety, such as the lovely Dendrobium premulinum of India. But among them are those of special interest, known as mimics, because they have captured the imagination by remarkable and whimsical designs which suggest animals, birds, insects, and other objects. This strange blossom, Paphiopedilum hirsutissimum, reveals a monkey's face. Stanhopea is known as Torito, or bull orchid. This lovely swan orchid, Cycnoches, often appears in the Longwood exhibits. Insects are represented in the spider orchid, a species of Brassia. The popular moth orchids, or Phalaenopsis, and many others including Oncidium papilio, the butterfly orchid. Several types are known as nun orchids. This odd bloom, Anguloa, deserves its name, the boat or cradle orchid. One of Longwood's unusual types includes outstanding examples of the strange bucket orchid, Coryanthes. And these polyrhizes are known as ghost orchid. But far more than for the strange and whimsical, the Longwood collection has won admiration for its magnificent, charming, and lovely parade of seemingly unending variety. The strange yet beautiful Stanhopea oculata, Coleogene cristata from the Himalayas, Dendrobium, the name meaning tree dweller, offers many different types. An unusual miniature version of the familiar Cymbidium. Spiranthes speciosa, a rare terrestrial from tropical America. Rhynchostylus retusa with striking blossom clusters. Vanda, its very name in Sanskrit, is beautiful. Epidendrum cinnabarinum, flowers on long stems. Longwood's magnificent collection still grows, and new plants join familiar favorites. With painstaking care and skill born of experience, each plant is coaxed toward its appearance for Longwood's visitors. In the 5 orchid greenhouses, the year-round program continues. It is characteristic of the orchid family for a particular plant to bloom each year at the same period. Thus, the many varieties are scheduled to assure an unending procession of blooms, while others are set aside in readiness for the next year. Developing plants are subdivided and repotted to expand the collection, and each is provided with the care and conditions which will achieve the finest blooms. Proper potting media and growing materials include fir bark and osmunda root fiber, which provide a porous support. Each of the growing houses is controlled to create ideal growing conditions. Some species thrive in a warm, moist environment, but shade-growing orchids need subdued light. Air circulation is of importance, along with humidity controls and optimum temperature range. And quite a few orchids require cool air conditioning. The schedule for watering is based on the natural environment of the orchid type and includes a carefully controlled program of feeding and pest control measures. The work continues throughout the year. The behind-the-scenes care and patient coaxing follow carefully developed schedules, and at each appointed time, the enchanting stars of Longwood's Orchid Ballet awaken, spread their beauty, and prepare for their debuts. At last, as scheduled, so regularly that this remarkable achievement is all but taken for granted, the new blooms reach perfection, and the orchid displays are ready to be renewed. Stars of an earlier show gracefully withdraw to prepare once more for next year's appearance. Plants display educational identification labels with names and place of origin. Unconscious of all that has been involved to present this feast of charm and beauty, thousands of visitors stroll through the conservatory. Year-round, easy delight and pleased admiration, mingled with surprise and wonder, mark the success of this monument to nature's flowers set apart, the orchid.